Hello, everyone. Welcome to Listen Up Podcast. I'm Al Neely, and today we're here with Tina Jenkins, and we're just going to chop it up a little bit about what's taking place. We are now in January, well, towards the end of January. We're in
Yeah.
the going into the first week of February, which we're under a new administration, and you just see some of the the things taking place that were promised during the campaign. So we're going to delve into a little bit of the Department of Education and things that are taking place with that right now. There's many things. Like now, there's everybody's all concerned about the ICE raids and
Yes.
the migrants and then the detainees, and it's really creating a bunch of fear. So the President Trump, he signed into an executive order canceling all the previous executive orders that were written of the past presidents to to dissolve and break up what was pretty much the status quo for the Department of Education. And the policies during those, that were focused on by the previous presidents were things such as protections for special needs children, protections for Title I students,
Yep.
meals, and things like that. So by him signing his executive order, he's put in place the foundation to dissolve those things, and it's been a concern. So let's just talk about what you're seeing and what you wanted to focus on, Tina.
I think when we look at that, I think when we look at his executive orders, one, it's what I would like to call it. It's sort of like almost like a legal, one be legal wish list because everything has to go through a legal process. Even executive orders have to go through a legal process, and he doesn't have sweeping powers to just eliminate a department, especially Department of Education, because it was something that was put in place by Congress. So, in order for him to even think he can remove the Department of Education, he wouldn't even be able to do that legally under an executive order. It would have to go before Congress because Congress is the one that, had voted on it, put it together, and so it has to go back through Congress to eliminate it. Now, can he divert funding? He wouldn't be able to do that under the current funding that we have because that has already been passed and that has been nullified. So he can't do much. That's why when he signed that one executive order saying stop all funding, well, you can't stop all funding. That's illegal because that was already ratified by Congress saying this is what the money is going towards. So, but I think the positive thing is that we did see when that sort of went into effect, people realized how removing that funding or stopping that funding really affects everybody across the board. No matter how you vote, where you live, it affects everyone from those who are have college kids who are in special needs, the elderly. And so when it comes to funding, a lot of that has already been approved now come this new funding bill that we're about to go through. That process that we're about to go through, we'll see what's going to happen going forward. But as it states right now, he can't remove all that funding and then divert it to wherever else that he wants it to go. But Title I funding is extremely important to every school system here throughout America, because it ensures that there's funding for all the special needs that kids that families need, that the school supplies. So if you have a kid that has an IEP or 504, all of those things, all that funding goes into ensuring that they have an equitable opportunity for education. And it doesn't matter how their parents vote. It's the equitable opportunity for them to have, and it's not right for that to be pulled. And that was one of the big reasons why we do have the Department of Education, is to ensure that children can learn equitably without being, to ensure that they're able to just learn in a safe and a well-rounded environment. Right. And so for him, he's going to start to try and continue to push those boundaries, in my opinion, because you see that,
Right.
So
this is what I've come to the conclusion. This basically amounts to the people that vote for him and think like him and support him. It's all been about culture. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for the last 15, 20 years, there's this snowballing, growing effect to now where it's at a crescendo. It's all about culture, right? And you're warring with people about culture, and the basis for your beliefs and your foundations have not been thoroughly I don't believe the bases have been thoroughly thought through, processed, or they've been looked at from the standpoint of what's equitable for everybody and how it affects everybody, because it affects a lot of the people that vote for him.
Right.
Okay. And they don't understand that. So this is how it breaks down. Title I students, this is the makeup of the Title I students. Native American students make up about 17%. Black students make up about 16%. The Asians, they tend to have issues with autism and hearing. So those are the things that focus on, and they fall into the special needs students. Mm-hmm. Okay. Poor white students make up 14%, and Hispanics make up 14%. Okay. So we're talking about people. I saw something the other day. I was looking at a news reel, and they were talking about there was a school that was in a rural area. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they overwhelmingly voted for Trump, and they overwhelmingly voted for Republicans, like 85%. Okay, the school is made up majority of poor white students that don't have lunch. They have special needs. Mm-hmm. I'm not lunch. They don't have food, breakfast in the morning. They have special needs. They need help with just paying for schools. So these are the people that are voting for him. And almost always when you have a culture war, what's happening is they're hanging and they're making the face of whatever it is that is an issue or the target. They want to make it the face of a minority. In this case, they want to make it the case of black people, black students, mm-hmm. and Hispanic students. Okay, but as you can see, black students make up 16% of it. Hispanic students make up 14%, right. And so do white students. So it's always with the culture war, there's always has to be a face associated with it, which shows that you don't research, you don't know what's actually causing these issues, and you don't know how it's detrimentally affecting the community. So if you don't have competitive students and you don't have competitive departments of education to elevate your society, you're going to fall by wayside, right? So I can keep going, but it's just overwhelmingly, I don't really think this has been thought about. You just pick a culture war, you put a target on a race of people,
Yep.
okay, and then you just keep making stuff up to try to prove your point. But in the meantime, you're hurting the people that don't actually.
You're hurting the people that
You're hurting
that's
everybody.
voting for you.
You're hurting everybody.
Exactly.
You're hurting everybody
your base
that's
and everybody else.
right. You're hurting everybody because the majority of the country are poor people, right? Marginalized people. It doesn't matter what color they are.
That's true, but I think, and when you said they don't do their research, the big part of it is that the Department of Education is only there really is for a way to have accountability for the states, that they can come in to ensure that the students are not, their civil rights are not being gone against. They're there to provide funding.
Right.
But the federal government, the Department of Education, they don't oversee your curriculum.
Right.
They don't oversee what goes on in the detail and the minutia of what actually goes on in your actual school district.
Right.
That is your state government.
Right.
And then your state, then it's your local government or your local municipality that really has better oversight over your school district.
Right.
And what funding goes in there, what curriculum goes in there, what are some of the rules and guidelines that go in there. And so when you look at the schools that are rural and very poor, they're normally in what kind of states?
They're in states that support Donald Trump.
Exactly. They're all
and
in the
his
Republican.
administration and all the people that are usually siding with him. Those, yeah. So, once again, it's a culture war, like I said. Now, here's the other part of that that I keep leaving out, that I hear quite a bit. Well, I don't want my kids to go to school to learn how to be transgender or whatever before. There's one gender for male, one gender for female, and that's it. So you have two genders. We don't know. So the focus, once again, is you pick a boogeyman.
Right.
Okay, the
Exactly.
boogeyman in this case is someone that has issues with or minding someone else's business about what their sexual identity is.
Right.
Okay. All right. So that is a topic for another day. We definitely need to talk about that because that is we all have family members or really close friends or relatives that have issues accepting the gay people or the trans people in their families, and all of them have them in their families.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we have a bunch of people that don't understand it. So that's also the boogeyman in this case. So we don't want to fund that. So, we don't want to have transgender bathrooms. Okay. And some of it makes sense, but a lot of it's just being blown out of
It really is.
It's really blown out.
Yes.
Okay. So you should have a bathroom for males, and you should have a bathroom for females. If you don't want to do a bathroom for anybody else, that's fine. You're going to have to pick which one you need to use, but this is all you're going to get. Outside of that, what else needs to be done? you don't need to make it a gender war. I mean, a cultural war
Culture,
on
but
gender.
unfortunately, it is just like you
Right.
said. They make it into a cultural war. It's
Yeah, it's a boogeyman.
just like no one is being indoctrinated at school. If that was the case, then you and I should be indoctrinated because we went to school. You know, did anything that they teach us is it's really there's not so much different that's being taught, maybe a little bit less on history of correct history,
Right.
different ways of doing math, different ways of,
Right.
instead of the things that we called sight words growing up, now they're called heart words.
Right.
So it's just, things are just a tad bit different, but our children are not being indoctrinated. But of course, that's something that they can hold on to try to support whatever it is that they want to support because that's what their base wants to hear. And it's very unfortunate because at the end of the day, people are being hurt by it. Families are being hurt by it because come this new, our new funding cycle, we shall see how much funding goes towards education in the Department of Education. And then they, want to do the whole charter thing. And
Right. So every time we talk about a different aspect why the Department of Education is being attacked. And then what you just said, the indoctrination part. Okay, when you're talking about us, the other thing is history. Okay, we've been. I get so tired. That history, of course, was my major. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you want to talk to history about me, we can just go ahead and break open a soda pop and we can just go. Okay, we can just go. All right, but we've been lied to so much throughout history that it's not interesting anymore. No one's paying attention to it anymore. And they're realizing it's not true. And these are the people that are apathetic to politics, the political system, and voting. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that it's not true, right? So you're not going to legislate by taking books out of school. You're not going to legislate what people are going to be forced to learn because the people that really want to know or that do know, they know the difference, right? So we all heard the stories about chopping down the tree and
Johnny Appleseed, that story.
The George Washington.
Oh yes, yes.
I can't tell a lie, and okay, Abraham Lincoln, released the slaves. All these things. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, which is it's all stuff that's made up that. We've been indoctrinated to believe that this is actually the truth, okay? It works better when you actually tell people the truth. You tell people what actually happened, okay? Tell them what happened with the Native Americans, all right? Why there's so few of them here, okay? Mm-hmm. Tell them the truth at what happened with the forcing of people from Africa to come here. Okay, if you want to talk about immigration, talk about the various immigrants that have come from each country here and what they've contributed or what they've brought to the country. The Asians, they came in here, the Chinese, they built the railroads.
Exactly.
Okay, so the Italians, they built the sewers and the Irish fought the war. They
did skyscrapers.
Well, they
right.
fought in the Civil War.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those were mostly Irish people that were, brought over here to fight the people in the South. That's where they constantly got their flow. So you have different things that are going on. The Japanese were forced into internment camps.
Yep.
Okay, these are truths. But if you don't tell anybody that, so their cultures know this. Japanese culture knows it. So when they're seeing what's happening with the Hispanic culture right now, they're going, "Oh, we've seen this happen before."
Exactly.
Right? When you see the Chinese being, excuse me, when you see the Chinese being, when you see the Hispanics being brought up in a situation where they're being ostracized and they're pointed out because they're here to work hard, and the ones that are here that are trying to do it legally are working hard to try to build something. Of course, the Chinese see that, and that's what they try to do, right? And they were treated like dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And we all know what the history of black people are in the country, right? We were the first wealth generating group of people that were, we were basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Used to build the country, right? So we all know this. So if we know this and we work on solutions to work this out, which I personally don't know if this is going to happen, but one of the things you're going to have is you're going to have this rift back and forth, back and forth. And this is what I'm afraid of. So the black people here know this. They're not going to stop fighting.
No, I don't think. I don't.
Um,
I can't see that happening. Just because that's part of human nature.
right,
Everybody fights among themselves just because.
right. But they're not, whatever you stand for, whatever you stand up for, you're going to, no matter what kind of terrorism or whatever is taking place, you're not going to allow that to deter you, is my point.
Right.
Okay. So what winds up happening is you're having these culture wars, and yeah, you think you might be winning, but in actuality, you're not. You're just getting people angry.
And nothing is moving.
No,
Nothing is moving.
no,
Nothing is changing.
no.
I think now, when you go back to education, you see that if they can limit who gets the right kind of education, then we don't have to worry about you know the lower income individuals getting a better education. We won't have to worry about them because they're not going to vote. They're not going to, they're not going to understand what's going on in the world as they grow older. And so, in my opinion, we will start to see, unfortunately, if they have it their way of defunding education, we will have a reversal of how well our children will be educated. I mean, it's hard to educate them now as it is because there's teachers. It's hard to find good qualifying teachers.
Who wants to do it?
Oh, yes.
Who wants to do it? Nobody wants to do it.
Right. They're not well paid. They're not treated well. And that's a whole different subject.
Correct.
In the classroom. That's a whole different subject. But at the same time, it's just like if they already don't have enough funding as it is, and then you decrease it even more, how much less are they going to, get a really well-rounded education? They're not. And then you look at the textbooks that are being written. They're constantly being rewritten to whitewash history, especially history, to make sure that math is done a specific way, make sure that, there's no reference to diversity at all, in math as well. You could see it in some of the curriculum that Florida had to go through when it came to it. So education, I think we're going to continue to go down if we don't get enough funding. And I don't see that happening under this administration.
Okay.
I just see it just.
Well, I look at it and I think this way. You have 1/3 of the people voted for the Republican Party. 1/3, just under 1/3, voted for the Democratic Party, and then you had an entire third that didn't vote. They're just apathetic to the entire system. So you're going to continue to have. Now, here's the bad thing. We don't ever really have, doesn't matter what party it is, a large, substantial group of politicians that are actually for the people. So
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't matter which ones they are, because if you see them, I mean, you can look at it, when they're talking about, not when they're talking about, when they're doing these hearings for this position. Well, you'll have the majority of their Republicans voting for this particular person that was put up. Then you'll have a few of the Democrats making deals,
Absolutely.
all right, to
Right.
vote for them. And basically what you're doing is you're making a deal to put yourself in a position to better yourself. And you see it happening. It doesn't matter whoever's in power, back and forth, it's either one of them. And almost ultimately, if you don't stand on something and you're wavering back and forth and you're making a deal with someone that doesn't have the best interests of people in mind, but you're thinking you have to make that deal to get something through, it's not for the people.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what party it is. So that 1/3 of the people that didn't vote, don't actually believe this thing is working for them.
Right.
Okay, then
And
you
I
have,
could see why.
right, and you can see why. Right? 'Cause
Absolutely,
stuff like that's
absolutely.
happening. Then you have 1/3 are
You're
just
like, what's the
hot.
point?
Yeah, then you have 1/3 that's just hot on this culture war. Like, that's going to make a difference. All you're just going to do is you're going to create, like, you got upset and you try to overthrow the government and you try to do that. Now what's going to happen is you're going to have another segment opposite your ideology is going to get upset, right? That don't believe in the government, anti-government, and they're going to come up and then they're going to do that. It's just politicians, the majority of them, they do just a disservice to this country, to the point where the majority of the people they don't benefit. So it doesn't make any sense to me. The whole education thing, like you said, we're getting back to, I got a little bit off the topic here, but getting back to that, yes, you're going to have states that are going to educate people, that are continue to educate people. You're going to have institutions that are going to educate people, that can continue to educate people based on the truth. Then you're going to have those states that don't, and they're going to lose out. But we already see those states that don't have good educational programs. Their incomes, their poverty levels are amongst the lowest. Their education levels are amongst
Exactly,
those states
yes.
are just going to continue to go down, like you said, right?
And then I think, when you talk about politicians and the 1/3 that doesn't vote, I think, whenever we're in a general election, you always see, of course, the president, this is who you need to vote for. But it is as much as important to understand how your state runs and how your local municipality runs. Like, who are your council people?
Right.
Do your council people that you're electing, do they even care about
Right.
education?
Right.
Where do they stand on education? Where do they stand on vouchers and charter schools?
Yeah.
Where do they stand on just making sure that children have an equitable opportunity
Right.
to be educated?
Right.
Where are they at? Where are our state, our state senators? Where are they at when you're looking at them? And then it was very interesting. My husband and I was talking the other night in reference to just city council and some of the people that, in the past that we have voted for. And because, he's in the city, I'm in the city, but a different city, we get to see a little bit more of the inner workings of the city. And you start to see just different personalities of who they are, of who these politicians really are, because you can't see that on the campaign trail, especially not with city council. You really can't see that on their website when you go to
Right.
do your due diligence and research.
Right.
So it's just like, how do you really pick a really qualified person
You
for
need
it?
to
It's
spend time
really hard.
figuring out these people, because I will definitely say those people are probably the most important political figures
They are.
in your life. If you're local, your city, your state, those are the ones that are any of those government agencies that are there. Those are the ones that are going to affect you on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So
And
those
I think
are the ones
that's
you need to focus on. And if we could get that going, then eventually maybe we're able to grow it to a point where you have a larger percentage of people that are in the federal government that actually have people's
that
best
care.
interests in mind. Yeah.
That actually care.
And they're not so. It's not as important to be associated with somebody for an appearance or for power.
So you can
or
stay
for
in
money.
power.
Yes.
And that's
That's all it is.
yeah, it's just a unfortunate rat race.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, once I get in, I got to figure out how to stay in, and how to stay in is okay. I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back. Okay.
Right.
It's all those backdoor meetings.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's the citizens who pay for some of those awful decisions. And that's why I really hope that when it comes to education, that our children's education is not affected by that.
Yeah.
But they're the vulnerable ones that get caught up in all of this craziness, from indoctrination to, oh, I can't have this book in the library.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a culture war. That's a culture war. It has no bearing on anything, except for making
Right.
you feel good about your culture,
Exactly.
or making you feel superior to somebody else's culture,
I agree.
because your culture's not confident, I guess. I don't know. Whatever it is. Okay. It's I don't know where we go from here, but it's absolutely a mess.
I think when we look at where we go, I think politically, we look at our midterms and definitely see like who's really in our corner. When it comes to making sure that
Jeez.
we have the funding, that we have the support that families need. And but there again, you got to sort of be diligent about the research as much as
Yeah.
you can. And you can't just rely upon the website.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Somebody comes to your hood and sees you, and no one's been in your hood for. No politician on the federal level has been in your neighborhood for 8 years, and then somebody comes down there and sees you and have a conversation with you at the barbershop. it fools you to make you think that they have your best interest in mind.
Right, that they actually care
Right.
about you. And
Yeah.
that's why I just, I don't understand.
Yeah,
I've
so-
never I never understood that. Oh, he's a great person, but you met him or her
one
once.
time, right? Because
For
well, they
5
came. They
minutes.
knew me. They cared enough about me to come down here, right? So I just think back to Vivek Ramaswamy, and Byron Donald when they went to Philly, right? They're not even part of the administration.
Right, where did he go?
I have no idea.
Where did Byron go?
Well,
Then McQueen went back
he's
to
in Florida, but I guess he did what he needed to do, and he's still where he was.
Yeah, all of that for what? All of that for what? I mean,
For nothing.
yeah,
For what he got, exactly what he got. And then Vivek, he's all on what's the name in the morning? I forgot. With Charlemagne in the morning.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
The
yeah,
Breakfast
yeah.
Club,
Breakfast
and
Club,
he's in
yes.
the neighborhood, and they don't even want him in the administration. But he's out there, and they're out there. They were in the hood trying to get black votes, black men's to vote.
And they got him.
They got some
They
of
got
them.
some of them.
They got some of them.
They got some.
It's just, it's a myth.
They yes, and
It's a myth.
There it goes again. It's that whole look over here. You know. Let's just say, oh,
They got a
it's all
few
the
more
black
than they would
men.
normally do.
Right. It's all
But-
the black men that went against Kamala Harris. And
No, that's-
like,
that's a
no,
myth. That's a myth.
that's a total farce.
Right,
But they would have you-
87% of
right.
87% of black men voted for Kamala Harris.
Exactly. But that's
92% of black women voted for Kamala Harris.
exactly. But that's
There is
a
no
lie
other
that they
group-
would try to tell you.
There's no other group voted as much for a particular politician than that. So it's always disingenuous propagandist facts.
They tell a small portion of it.
Yeah.
They tell just like it. If you go back to what you're saying about history, they'll tell a small portion about or teach a small portion
Right.
about what history is
Right.
to continue to make sure that a certain people group stays in the limelight. That they
Right.
weren't such bad people.
Right.
They did discover.
Yeah, you better be careful. Your grandkids are going to go to school one day as a boy, and come home as a girl. And
Absolutely, like bam, didn't even like
the nurse is going to perform an operation.
right, and then people actually believe that.
Yeah.
It's very, very sad, and it's very sad of where we're even at, just even right now with the
Yeah.
whole DEI stuff.
Yeah.
That in itself,
We got to do that one another day.
that was
Because
horrible.
the face that they have associated with that is black women. That's the face. The boogeyman for DI is black women. You know who DI benefits the most?
White women,
White women.
that woman that's sitting up at that podium who's 27 years old.
Right.
She wouldn't have been at that podium if it wasn't for DEI.
That's correct.
But of course, you
Right.
wouldn't be able
There's
to tell
there's
the
a,
masses
there's
that.
there's a boogeyman face associated with all of it.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then if you drank the Kool-Aid, then
Then you
vote
always
that
try
way.
to find something to fit your narrative.
Right.
And it's very unfortunate because right now it's okay, you have one little snippet here to fit your narrative, and then your narrative must be true.
Right.
And that's I feel like that's where we're at society wise. Facts have gone out the door.
Yeah.
It is just gone out the door. That's why there's no, in my opinion, there is no point of watching mainstream.
Oh, I stopped.
News.
I stopped watching the news. I was watching it occasionally. I'm talking about network news. I was
Oh
watching
yeah,
it
absolutely.
up until the election. I completely turned it off. Mm-hmm. I don't even anymore. I do. If I want to get news, I get it from a couple of places, and then of course, when I'm doing my research for my my video essays or my podcast, then I'm doing my research myself. But I mean, even you look at these networks, these networks are capitulating to whatever political party is in office so that they can reap revenue and benefits, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
whatever they're gearing their viewership, the policies or the topics that they're gearing towards their viewership are to promote the fact of revenue generation for that particular company. And they're doing the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's back and forth, so I
Right.
can stay in business. I have
Exactly.
power, and
Exactly.
I can
So at the
maintain
end
my
of the
influence.
day, it's all about money
Right. It has
for
nothing
them.
to do with the people, the welfare of the people, and I think that's where we've gotten with everything pretty much in this country. When we started the Department of Education, it was started to. I wrote some notes down. So it was started to one to improve the educational quality,
Right.
increase access to education, increase public involvement. Okay, which is a big thing. I don't want a teacher telling my kid what we need to do. I'm the parent.
But
I
you're
mean,
not the
they don't.
educator. I get that, but there's a fine line on that too when it comes to the whole. I need for you to teach my kid this and this and this. We as parents, we're parents. Last time I checked, we're not educators. We didn't go to school to be an educator. There are certain things that people go through a stringent curriculum, a test, certification in
Yeah.
order to be a teacher. And
So
I find it so hypocritical for parents, and we've seen it in our own state, where the teachers, the parent, like parents have lost say so in the school of what their kids should be taught. All of that curriculum is gone over by well educated people. That is their field.
well, the whole thought is it's leftist, it's propaganda, and you don't want your kids learning ideas that will make them ungodly or gay or sensitive to another
Or they'll feel bad.
culture or
They'll feel
or is
bad.
sensitive to another culture's
Plight.
correct, or I don't want my kid knowing their history to feel guilty. So you have that in play, right? But I think we've all read, or most of the people I would say in high school have read certain books, Catcher in the Rye, DJ Salinger, and all, and then different things. So I didn't turn gay. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm more well rounded. I can talk about things and I can have empathy for people. There's books you didn't have to take the book out of there. How empathetic, how well rounded are you going to be if you don't have exposure to things?
Exactly. I remember there were some books that our
Catcher in the
children
Rye.
brought
These are all books that
home,
they want to take out.
and I forget the name of this one book, but I remember this one book my child was telling me about. They're in high school. And I'm like, are you serious? This is what you're reading? About these kids being reborn, and if they didn't do a certain thing, then they would cull them. And I'm like, you're reading about culling children? Are you serious? Because I'm the mom that wants to protect her kids, so I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, you need to be exposed to this. You need to be exposed to different ways of thinking, different cultures, different, for this was a different kind of subgenre that they were going through. But I could
You
not.
know, you
I
know what
was
that
shocked.
actually helps.
I was shocked.
You know what? When you
But
have
I wouldn't
exposure
go
to
with,
that,
but I wouldn't go, hey, librarian, you need to take that off the shelf.
you know what that actually helps, being exposed to that? It helps you stop trying to fight people. Okay?
Right.
Right? Because you go, oh, they might actually have something similar to me, and I just learned something. So,
Yeah.
so it doesn't have to be a fight, a physical fight.
Yeah.
It could just be, okay, I got it. We're cool. We can have a relationship and we can move on. So also support research to figure out how you can make education better. To fulfill a campaign promise, of course, it was Carter who's established the modern Department of Education, which is, I think Carter is considered probably amongst the one, two, or three most intelligent presidents we've ever had. To clarify the federal role, to save tax dollars, and to support the democracy.
Right.
Right. So I don't think this country wants to be a democracy anymore. So maybe that's the reason we want to get rid of the Department of Education.
I don't know what we want to be.
Right.
We want to just be ruled by oligarchs.
Oh, gosh. So anyway.
And I think and you know, as I was doing my research about you know, the Department of Education, how it plays a role in our local government and in our state government. You know, we actually, believe it or not, received way more funding as a state in whole from the federal government. And I want to say probably about, if I remember correctly, between 4 to 7% of that goes into our state education. And so it pays, it does pay for quite a bit, like free lunches, breakfast, different after school activities and
Right.
things of that nature. And then there's separate funding for Title I and all that good stuff. So it is a wonderful department that we, in my opinion, I feel like we still need to have. But it's super important for people to realize that at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're putting the people that you're putting in power is the right people that you should be putting in power in your local and state government.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are in a state that's pretty stable.
What state?
Our state.
Virginia?
Yes. Virginia.
It's stable because there's a balance.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So the present governor would probably side more to what Trump would want to do.
Absolutely. He
But
sure would, but you know.
the state Congress, they won't allow that.
Exactly.
So
that's our saving grace. That is absolutely our saving grace.
Right.
Just like when you see what they're trying to do, and I believe it's Oklahoma, where they want to make sure that when you enroll a child, that the child is a citizen.
the what?
That the child is a U.S. citizen. So if a child is, so I guess they can have a role or immigration role. So you can say Johnny B is not a U.S. citizen, but Johnny A is a citizen. And so when you have ICE come, you can round up all the non-citizen children. And that's how I see it. But it's very unfortunate. But if you look at where Oklahoma is and where it's at educationally, they want to do all these cultural things and not do what's right by their constituents to make sure that their kids are being just the basic education. Between Oklahoma and Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi are one of the lowest within our United States that has, lowest education level.
Yeah,
So.
I was talking to Carlos Moreno, who's the author of Victory for Greenwood, and he does a lot there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about the education of Greenwood and the Native Americans, and then all the things that are going on. And I think they just decided to open up an investigation about what actually took place during Greenwood. But one of the things him and I were talking about, and he touched on, is about the educational levels there, and the lack of them teaching actually history and what actually was taking place there. So Yeah, I can see that. The big thing is also there is wanting to put Bibles in the classroom.
Yeah, Bibles in the class. No,
What is
curriculum,
curriculum
curriculum,
for what?
and making having religious curriculum, and so if so, the teachers would have to teach this religious curriculum to the kids
Which
in Oklahoma.
Christianity?
Yes, yes,
You mean American nationalist Christianity?
right,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I don't. I'm a Christian, so there's a lot of stuff that's there that I can't
It is a lot of
I
stuff.
can't get on board with. So
Absolutely.
I can't leave people out. It doesn't matter where you're from, what
Right.
you're doing, or whatever. So, so I would imagine that's going to be an issue because you're going to have other cultures there that don't identify with Christianity. You're not going to indoctrinate them, and you're not going to force them to assimilate into
Right.
the white American national Christian ideology if their entire family is Asian or Jewish
Right.
or Indian. You're not going to. This not going to happen.
No, no, and
Or
it's unfortunate,
Hispanic.
right? And it's very unfortunate because and there again it goes by,
Right. Right.
their local government,
Yeah, I
what
think
they
I
voted
think that's
in,
what they meant by separation of state.
church and state. Oh goodness, yeah, yeah. There
That's
is
why
no
you need to keep the
separation.
two separate.
They're not trying to keep them separate. It's
Well,
unfortunate.
it's not gonna work for everybody.
It's not. It's not. And
I
I
don't care.
think we
You
have a
can't
big
force
enough
them
voice
to learn it.
that it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. And I think they did put like a caveat in there that, to make this curriculum available in your school, and if you don't make it available in your school, then we'll revoke funding from your district. So it's very, very rocky out in other states when it comes to education and what they're trying to push, their own agenda, their own, indoctrination, especially when it comes to religion. It's just like that's the whole point. That's one of our biggest things is the separation of church and state. And church not meaning Christian church. It means
All church.
all churches.
Well, that's what the whole country was founded on. That's what we tried to get away from England for. Right. We tried to
But
get away
we
from
forget
England
about
because
that.
They kept trying to force these same what they're trying to do now down the settlers that came here. That's what they were going to get away from.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But they forget about that too. It's very unfortunate. So
I don't think they forget about it. I just think they're trying to rewrite it.
to fit their narrative.
Correct.
To fit their narrative.
Correct.
So it's just like they're going to have their own narrative of what they want to say
Right.
in order to fit their agenda.
Right.
And then they'll continue to tweak it and tweak it. And the sad thing is that they figure they say it over and over and over again, it becomes truth. It's still a lie. You just continue to believe in that lie.
Right.
Or you start to believe in the lie.
Right. Yeah, and you can see it happening with the news networks.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you're trying to have a conversation with people that listen to Fox is just ridiculous. People that listen to CNN it's ridiculous.
I don't. Yeah, I can't. I know my limits.
At a certain point, all it is comes down. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I'm like, where are your facts?
Yeah.
Where's your research?
Yeah.
Well, I saw it on this, and I'm like, okay, well, where did that come?
Where did that come from? Exactly.
So it's just a matter of, they're going to try to, like you said, repeat it until
they think it'll become true, or enough
Correct.
people believe it. They could care less if it's a lie, and and that's why I think it's a sad state,
Right.
because it is a lie for him to have said over and over and over in the campaign trail, we're going to shut the Department of Education down. We're going to shut
He
the
can't
department.
shut it down.
He can't shut it down, exactly. And
Right. He can take funding.
he could take funding from it,
Right.
but he
And
definitely
then the
can't shut
people
it
that-
down.
The people that need it the most, like I said, that little rural town that is predominantly, or just about all of them, are poor
White
kids.
Americans. Right.
They're all going to suffer because now they're not going to have funding for special needs or school breakfast, which is the first thing that I've always learned about education in schools when you're poor is you cannot focus when you're hungry or you're tired, right?
No.
So-
we see that as adults.
Right. Yeah. I was
It's no
sick
difference.
For a little while. And
Right.
I could not focus because I was just sick and I hadn't eaten.
So you're right. You can't think right. You can't write.
Yeah. So you're taking that away. Of course, then you're going to have issues with being able to prosper in school.
Yeah, but if you leave it up to one senator, kids should go out there and, work. And then they should be able to pay for their lunch.
The question is, where they're going to be able to work at?
I don't know, because he said
That's another story. Where you going to be able to work at?
I just find that they'll remove funding and then be like, oh, the kids can just go out there and get a job and pay for their lunch. Well, how my 5-year-old going to go out there and get a job and to pay for their breakfast and lunch if I can't even afford it?
I'm about to give historical on you. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the feudalism with the serfs. And
Yes.
the feudal systems
Yes.
of the 1300s. And you just had a group of loyalists, elites, and then everybody else was left with you're just trying to figure out how to survive.
How to survive, how to make ends meet.
You got a rake and a hoe that you made out of some bones and some a log, and you
Got to find a seed, got to do everything.
That's right. You got some burlap for shoes.
I don't know.
Make the best out of it you can.
And
we're basically going back to feudalism.
Exactly. And that's
Okay.
what they're saying. At least this is what this one gentleman was saying. I said, oh my goodness, are our kids supposed to go out, get a job so they can pay for their own lunch? Because you don't want to fund it? Then what are you going to do with our tax-paying dollars then? Where is that going to go?
I don't know.
Oh, it's going to go in that big old AI.
Yeah. All right.
So.
Any last thoughts?
I think
Jeez, I just said this.
my last thought is that people, whatever starts coming out the mouth or tweeting or Xing or whatever it is that you want to call it, and posting on social media, you got to check for it yourself. Because I think that's the only way that we as a society of people who care and want to see our fellow man prosper, our country prosper, is to make sure that we do our own research ourselves, because we cannot believe anything this dude says. You just can't. It's all lies. He might tell a small, minute truth, but then everything around it else is lies. And if you continue to listen to that and believe it, you're just going to spiral down. And we're already in a mental health crisis. And I think the best thing to help with that is to do your own research. Take what he says with a grain of salt and go look it up yourself. Because I thought, are you serious? He's going to close the Department of Education? And then I'm like, oh, I tell you, he's making me the smartest person, because I got to go and do all this research because of the things that come out of his mouth.
All right. Well, there you have it. Miss Tina, she's getting smarter by the minute because she's doing her research because she doesn't believe what's coming out of our political leader's mouth.
There you
So,
go.
which is probably it's good practice. Right?
It has to be a practice.
Yeah, it's good practice. All right, so thank you for joining us. That ends today's episode of Listen Up. We'll catch you next time on Listen Up. For anyone watching this channel, I ask that you please like and subscribe for upcoming videos.